Hello everyone, good day. I hope that you listened very carefully and you finished the video presentation for your discussion this Monday, March 16, 2018. So our class has been suspended last Friday, March 13 to 2020 because of um, COVID-19. So before we proceed with our discussion, let us have first a short prayer. Father, you are our refuge and divine healer. We are concerned about the rising cases of COVID-19 in our country. Make us know more about the virus from reliable sources so we don't panic but prepare well to protect ourselves and our family. May all of us experience your healing love. So in the place of anxiety, we are blessed with your peace. Amen. So now let us proceed with our discussion, the fingerprint classification formula. So what is the fingerprint classification formula? So the fingerprint classification formula was derived from the Henry classification system with FBI modification. So it refers to the formula derived for a complete set of 10 fingerprints or the arrangement of fingerprint records into groups or subgroups for filing purposes. So it is composed of the key classification, which was represented by the capital letter K, M or major classification, the P as the primary classification, the S as the secondary classification, and the SS as subsecondary classification, and the final classification represented by capital letter F. So the line between the classification formula is called the classification line. The upper portion of the classification line is referred to as the numerator, while the lower portion is referred to as the denominator. So as you can see, in the classification line, we only have the major, primary, subsecondary, and the secondary classification as complete with numerator and the denominator, while the key classification and your final classification have no denominator. However, in the case of the final classification, we must take note that the final classification can either be a numerator or a denominator as the case may be, depending on the fingerprints that we are going to encounter during our classification uh, method or our classification. However, before we proceed to the first classification formula, which is the primary classification, let us first do the blocking out. So blocking out is the identifying of patterns appearing in each box in labels in it and the lower portion. Fingerprint patterns are represented by the following symbols. So plain arc will be represented by the symbol of A. So in our previous discussion, you were told or you were taught how to identify or distinguish between a tented arc and a plain arc. So a plain arc is a classification which have a ridge which enters from the left and then go and exit to the right without any circuiting or recurving ridge, just like in the photograph in front of you. While the dented arc is also a another example of arc which consists or which have an upthrust. So the difference between the two is the tented arc have an upthrust, as you can see in the middle. So your arc pattern have no core and delta. So your plain arc will be represented by capital letter A, and while your tented arc will be represented by the symbol of T. Your radial or ulnar loop will be represented by either of the two, a slash, depending on the sloping of your loop. So, same with the arc, during the previous discussion, you were told how to distinguish between radial or ulnar loop. So, as a sort of review, before you try to identify what type of loop you are going to classify or you are going to identify, know first its origin. Because by knowing the origin of the loop, either from the left or from the right hand, you will be able to know if it is radial or ulnar. So if the loop or the looping of the loop tends to go to tends to go to the direction of the little finger, that is ulnar. So if the direction of the loop tends to go to the thumb, that is radial, because your little finger contains or has the ulna bone, and your thumb contains or has the radial bone. So to proceed, plain whirl is or will be represented by the symbol of capital letter W. And the central pocket loop whirl will be represented by a symbol of C. So as the same with the arc and the loop, you were discussed or you were taught how to distinguish between plain whirl and a central pocket loop whirl. So the plain whirl is, if you try to identify a plane whirl and a central pocket loop whirl, you have first to locate the left and the right delta, and then you have to draw an imaginary line from the left up to the right delta. If your imaginary line is inside the circuiting ridge, then that is a plane whirl. While in the central pocket loop whirl, same pattern. You have to draw an imaginary line from the left to the right delta, and if the circuiting ridge does not contain, or if your imaginary line does not enter the circuiting ridge of the whirl, then it is a central pocket loop whirl, which will be represented by a symbol of C. Your double loop whirl will be represented by the symbol of D. So as discussed, your double loop whirl consists of two separate loops. And for it to be considered as a double loop whirl, it must have a separate shoulder. And lastly, your accidental whirl will be represented by the same symbol of X. So the accidental whirl is composed of at least two or more patterns inside a single fingerprint, except the plain arc rather. So in our example, you have a fragment of your tented arc here at the middle, and a fragment of your loop at this side, and as well as this side. So now let us proceed to the fingerprint classification card. So your fingerprints will be assigned with a number. Number 1 as the right thumb, right index finger as number 2, right middle finger as number 3, right ring finger as number 4, right little finger as number 5, left thumb as number 6, left index finger as number 7, left middle finger as number 8, left ring finger as number 9, and left little finger as number 10. So we will proceed to the blocking out. So as you can see, I have provided 10 different fingerprints for us to solve or classify during our discussion. So finger number 1 is a whirl pattern or a plain whirl. So it will be represented by capital letter W. Finger number 2 is also a plain whirl, which also be represented by capital letter W. Finger number 3 is a central pocket loop whirl, which will be represented by capital letter C. While finger number 4 is an ulnar loop, so it will be represented by a slash, which go along with the direction of its sloping or slope. And your finger number 5 is a radial loop, and it will be represented by a slash. Your fingers number 6 is also an ulnar loop, which will be represented by a slash. Finger number 7 is tilted arc, which will be represented by capital letter T. Number 8 is an ulnar loop. Number 9 is a tilted arc. And your number 10 is a plain whirl.